Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Leigh Henderson, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about using social media in career guidance. And I'll just say a little bit more about what we're going to do and what we're not going to do. But what I'm not going to do for you is I'm not going to give you a whole list of do's and don'ts. We're going to talk about principles and how career guidance processes interrelate and are enhanced by using social media. It's good to see everybody here. There are two people here who have only come for this talk apparently, so no pressure for me. And I'll talk for about 20 minutes. I'm going to go through a lot of slides very quickly, and if you want to look at the detail of the slides, then I haven't got handouts printed off, but if you come to the desk just over here to my right and give me your email address, I will send you the slides so that you can look at them in greater detail. There are three badges down here. The ICG one you will know. NICEC you might know, National Institute of Careers Education and Counselling. I'm a fellow of NICEC. Unlike Minds is a group of people based in Manchester in the converted monastery, which is a fantastic space, but we are what it says on the tin, and there are people that I work with who are not career guidance specialists, but we all benefit from interacting with each other. And whilst it's not that work is not expressed directly in what I'm saying this afternoon, I will touch on some of the areas, perhaps briefly, some of the areas that we've been working on in Unlike Minds. And in passing, I'm also chair of the ICG Research Committee. So we're talking about trends and channels, and then figuring out how to make best use in practice. And there may be some of you here who certainly are people in the building who have used social media and do use social media in career guidance quite extensively. So the big opportunity, when I started work as a career guidance worker, the school leaving age had just been raised. So I was faced with 75 kids in a newly built block, disaffected, and they saw me coming and threw away the key, basically. And what I did, and what no doubt you all will do, but I came out of college trained to do career interviews. The last thing these kids wanted were career interviews, so I just talked to them. And they were very unstructured, there were a series of conversations, and lo and behold, after a period of time, I was getting positive feedback from teachers saying that some of these youngsters, not all by any manner of means, were actually beginning to engage with their subjects because they felt they got some framework. Now, it's not rocket science, and I'm not claiming to be a super careers advisor, but that has always stuck with me, that opportunity I was given to just have conversations with people is actually something which is now easier to do through social media. We bought a card for my daughter's partner. They've just moved in together, and he is a Facebook fanatic, and I think it says it all, really. So we're only going to skim the surface, and the scene is changing all the time, and I'll come back to this, but will Facebook still be number one in 5 to 10 years? And what I've been hearing, maybe not even in 2 years. So that's something. So this is part of the reason I don't want to go down the road of giving you a whole lecture about how to use Facebook. That's appropriate, but in other settings and at other times. So I'm going to look at the prime categories of social media and how we can interrelate with those and use them in our work. We'll touch on ethical and professional issues as well. But it can only be a start. And one of the things that I've been talking to the ICG about, and which we've agreed in principle to do, and in fact, as of today, we're going to do it, is we're going to set up a community of interest on using social media in guidance. And I've talked to Michael Labalestier at Prospects, who's got a lot of experience in this area too. So we're going to set this up because I think unless we start working using social media to explore these issues and to learn from each other's experiences and to talk about ethical issues and practical problems, then it's always going to be something which is worked on in small pockets, and I think this is something which, as I say, this is going to be the start of a longer conversation, I think. This is where I'm just going to whiz through these slides because there's a lot of information here, but I just want to illustrate the degree to which social media is taking over our lives. It's a useful report that Ofcom does every year, which comes out in August, and they do the research about now, which produces all these statistics. The importance of this is that it's probably the best source of information on how fast this market is moving. Just one to pick out, and that is that 27% of adults and 47% of teenagers now own a smartphone. This is a UK-wide figure, and you'll see it's possibly not the same quite in Scotland, but nevertheless, you can say probably now, because that was in August, that at least half of teenagers in the UK, across the UK, own a smartphone. How many here have got a smartphone? Slightly under half. And so 27% of adults, maybe it's the group that's here, but they're not a fair representation. But certainly these devices are growing exponentially in terms of their use. 60% had acquired their smartphone over the past year. The point being, for example, a practical thing today is that I've got my laptop with me. I haven't got a tablet, I'm not that advanced. But I couldn't connect easily, even though there's a Wi-Fi here. I switch on my phone and I've got the information I need immediately. Okay, so that's why these things are growing. It's the instant access. In terms of why people use, this is quite interesting. Same source, use of smartphone, social networking, 40% of adults, 60% plus of teenagers. Photos and video, 35% and getting on for 50%. Email, 45% plays, just 28%, something like that. So although there are differences in terms of ownership and the kinds of use that people make, the prominence of using social networking and taking photos and video are key factors for us to consider. Certainly in National Geographic this month there was something about taking digital photos, and it is relevant, it seems to me. Digital photo on smartphones is going to double between now and 2015, they project. Comparative use of internet by PC and mobile users. The interesting one there is finding information on work, job and studies. 72% of PC internet users use the internet for that purpose. 20% of mobile users, and I bet that's rising pretty quickly too. I wouldn't be surprised to see the smartphone figure to be up to 50% by next year. And more or less finally on these kind of figures, I think, top 10 UK mobile internet sites by time spent, million minutes, 2,523 million minutes on Facebook, 702 on Google sites. This could change by next year, or change significantly. I think Facebook will still be number one, and it doesn't talk about LinkedIn. But the point is that there is a dominance now, but as I will mention, there are new things coming along all the time. And talking about video, my eldest daughter, who's setting up a business, and was talking to a mentor on FaceTime video for 2 hours last night, as a matter of course. You may be scared by this, but video is predicted to be internet communication is predicted to be 90% video by 2015. Admittedly, that prediction is made by WebEx. WebEx are a video organisation. How many here know what cloud computing is? Good. For the rest of you, it's very simple. It's simply any computing communication or usage where the software is not on your machine. It's out there somewhere. It's in a data center. So we call it as being in the cloud. So Facebook, Google Documents, all those sorts of processes are all in the cloud, and that's where the huge rise in functionality is coming from. But don't be afraid, don't throw away your PC yet. The PC is predicted to be a useful, if not vital, tool for a long time to come. I'll just read this out to you. If you read that second bullet point, this new personal cloud world, the specifics of devices will become less important for the organisation to worry about. Users will use a collection of devices, with the PC remaining one of many options. And of course, people have said to me, oh, well, in that area of Manchester, the kids haven't got PCs, but they've got gaming consoles, they can get onto the internet. In Scotland, you are, I think, disadvantaged, you have a lower level of usage apparently than the rest of the UK. And I know there have been issues about broadband here, and you'll know this more than I, as a mere southerner. But Scots least likely in the UK to have broadband. 61% of Scots have broadband against 74% across the UK, and even lower in Glasgow with 50%. 30% of adults say they don't use the internet in any location, compared with 20%. So we've got to be, we have always to be cognizant of the fact that we don't want people to be disadvantaged in accessing our services because they haven't got access to the internet. What we're doing is saying that where people have got access, where they have got access through whatever means, then we should be aware of it and make best use of it. So, it seems to me that there are more than this, but two key opportunities for us: the greater intuitive connection with clients as their ideas evolve. I mean, to illustrate to a ridiculous extent, I suppose, the old idea of Leigh Henderson going to Odium School in the depths of Hampshire and sitting one day, wet day in October, talking to somebody because their surname began with D, is clearly ridiculous, but it used to happen. Does it still happen? Do you still have that kind of system, you know, in schools here? But that's how far we've come. But there is still a filter through lack of resources, through practical constraints, where there is a degree, it is more difficult to see clients when they really want to be seen. And the opportunities through social media seem to me to be revolutionary in that respect. The other aspect is better CPD and professional currency. As we'll see when we look at some of the software and some of the tools in a moment, and something which I use a lot is to have information pushed at you. So if I turn on my Facebook or my LinkedIn or my Twitter account, by the choices I've made, I get the latest information, whether it's from the ICG, whether it's from the Department for Education. The same would apply to Scottish Government, whatever. You don't have to go looking for it. I'm going to, well, I'll skip over this. I think except to say that we need to start meeting clients on their turf, as I've called it, but not from the point of view of just being trendy, but by using the means of communication that they use. Not necessarily, I think we'll come back to this, not necessarily using the media that they use, that the tools that they use. You don't have to use Facebook just because they do, but that's something which we need to think about in more detail. And from my perspective, any improvements in productivity are an important but secondary benefit to what we're talking about, because we have in England the National Careers Service, and they're talking about this being launched on the 5th of April, and they're talking about huge benefits of online services. But what really matters, it seems to me, is that we have a personal service. It can't be a face-to-face service for practical reasons necessarily, but it has to be a service based on trust. and whether that trust is established through a face-to-face conversation or whether it can be established through a remote social medium, I think depends on the individual careers advisor and on the client. I would think that it's fairly obvious that most client-professional relationships are established on a face-to-face contact at some point, certainly on a personal voice or video basis, rather than through text. That is not absolute. I'm aware of projects across Europe where there have email-based counselling of vulnerable women, for example. So none of these things are absolute, but I think as a truism, I would argue that a personal service has to be based on an initial face-to-face conversation or telephone conversation. I do a bit of kayaking, nothing quite that rough, but I've included this slide because it seems to me that it's a fair metaphor for career guidance, because if you think that we've got people who can get into a kayak and can roll it first time without any tuition, people can do it, I'm sure they can. Most people would need to be taught how to do it, and certainly to handle rough water and to read the way the water is moving across the rocks. And if you think of the labour market as the water, the person on the side needs to be able to advise the kayaker, needs to be able to read that water, and in the context of the information sphere, which we'll talk about in a moment, it behoves us to be comfortable with the information environment that our clients are working within. And so in the internet, this is a representation of the internet, we've got all this stuff coming at us, all of us, and it's how the individual sorts all that out, obviously, is the job of a careers advisor to help. And I'm afraid, well, I'm not going to apologise for it, how anybody, naming no names, but how anybody can believe that anybody, everybody can sort that out for themselves unless they're disadvantaged, beats me. My wife works with postgraduate, postdoctorate students at university, and we reckon she has the same incidents of people who cannot cope with career decision making as people who are coming through the NEET group. Some of the work we're doing in Unlike Minds actually is about the whole idea of career, not just being about learning and work, but about your health career, and that these things need to be in balance. And also about tools which we believe still need to be developed to provide a personal internet to an individual, as opposed to having to use external tools. And so you'll be familiar with these sorts of sources of information, and I've stuck a couple in there just to stir things up a bit. Not that we're in a position to discuss them, but you'll notice that as an example I put Wikipedia in there as a source of information. How many of you would trust Wikipedia as a source of career information? Bold, brave person. In America, oncologists, the Professional Association of Oncologists, can't remember what the title is, did some research in their field, and they concluded that the information on oncology in Wikipedia was as accurate as their own information that they supplied, but it was actually better and more simply presented. So the point is that people are going to go and use Wikipedia anyway, and from my own searches, you can't guarantee it all the way across, but you can look at Wikipedia and there are some very useful articles in there. So just because we want people to use My World of Work or Planet Plus or whatever it is, it doesn't mean to say that's all they're going to use. They're going to go to all sorts of places. And one of the confusing things about working with social media, of course, that there are so many channels, so many different sources. And one of the things which increasingly, if you go to, how many of you have heard of iCould? A few of you, yeah. Well, iCould is a video narrative storytelling, mainly about learning and work, but it's a storytelling site. So you could access iCould through YouTube, through Facebook. So all these things now are connected. So if we're talking about Twitter and Facebook and all these different channels, it doesn't have to be that we're logged onto all those sites and have to make choices between them. There is an issue of time management, however. Right. In terms of, again, when you see the slides in detail, you can look at these links and work through them. The broad, if you look at these tools, that they come onto various different, can be a different grouping. So if we think about our own needs for a start, CPD. In terms of my own CPD, I use Twitter, as I said. Occasionally I put things on Twitter. I put a very grumpy one on yesterday, but generally speaking, I use Twitter as a source of information. And I'll dwell on that in a moment. But there are, when you get the slides, I will put the name of an SDS colleague who was on a training session with me a couple of weeks ago and is now on Twitter and has already started talking to his school about how they can make best use of his Twitter account, and he's using it as a source of information for himself, and he's very happy. Craig Phillips, his name is. He's very happy to interact with colleagues in SDS and to explore how these things can be used in his work and your work. There are a number of blogs here that I've listed, and one which I will add in is by Michael Labalestier from Prospects, because he has a lot of experience now of work in several sites across England in using Facebook in particular in career guidance. But so there are various blogs that you can some of them are more theoretical than others. Some of them are quite practical. Careers Guardian is a very good one, which covers a wide range of topics. So you've got Twitter, you've got blogs, you've got the social and professional networking sites such as Facebook, Google+, MySpace, LinkedIn. How many of you are on LinkedIn? So that's 60% of the audience. How many of you that are on LinkedIn would use it with your clients? Okay, so only one. Opinions vary about LinkedIn in terms of working with clients, but you can certainly set up groups in all of these media. You can set up groups to interact with clients, and certainly Prospects have got a lot of experience now working with clients individually and in groups on Facebook. And again, you'll be able to access that when I send you the links. Websites, you can have pages and pages of websites, and I just put up one, Scotland's Futures Forum, which I'm sure you know. Another one from the CPD aspect. How many of you use Delicious or Site You Like? Now, both of those are sites where you can bookmark, you can put a mark on if you come across a useful article or source of information. Another one which I'll put on the slide on the pack is SlideShare. A colleague from Newcastle, I think it is, but in the northeast of England somewhere, has got a slide set about using social media, and doesn't go much more into practicalities than I've been able to, but those sorts of resources are there. If you're looking at, for example, I know some colleagues are looking at research in this area, then you can do a search on Delicious and such you like and find resources that other people have already found, and you can put them into your own collection and build up your own store of knowledge, whether it's things like slides or LMI resources or research papers. There is a new one coming along which I've heard about today called Pinterest, which I'll put on. I'm impressed. Pinterest is like a pinboard. So when you find something, whether it's a photo or whatever it is, you can put it on a virtual pinboard. And that apparently is expanding very, very quickly in the States, and could be, who knows, but could be something which will challenge Facebook. One of the problems with Facebook is actually difficult to administer in terms of getting your settings right. Google Plus, I think, is probably easier, at least it seems easier. It has a lot of people registered on it, but not very many users. These are the sorts of this is the sort of information that I think we need to share amongst ourselves as people try these things out and put them onto a common platform like an ICG community of interest, so that we can actually get a three-dimensional view of these issues. In terms of client support, again, these are partly repeating what we've said before. Video, how many of you have used video in your work? That's good. As I said earlier, video is becoming all pervasive, and people are even talking about using video to disseminate vacancy information, using video for group discussions. For example, the research committee, ICG research committee, we've already held 2 meetings by WebEx as it happens. But whether it's Skype, WebEx, or one of the others, it doesn't really matter. The point is actually, for some purposes, easier to work collaboratively on a video link than it can be face to face. Quite apart from the travel, you can work on one document at one time, with everybody having an input. In terms of the ethics, we need to be very careful about how we present ourselves online. So it seems to me that we have got 3 personas. One is the professional providing a service. The other is our social leisure persona. If we do that, I'm personally very limited. You certainly won't see any pictures of me drunk in a high street on anywhere on the web, or drunk anywhere actually. And your own personal career development. And it seems that in terms of policy development, we need to be developing guidelines around how we work between these 3 personas, and how we put firewalls up between them. Because if you're working on Facebook, one of the challenges could be that you're working on Facebook and you actually see, because they're posted on somebody's wall, comments which you think not very sensible, not very sensible, but actually possibly even quite challenging in terms of legality. So those are issues which we have to be very conscious of. I'm going to finish now with these other key issues, because we're running right out of time. Privacy is paramount, establishing and maintaining trust. And I mentioned trust as a careers advisor is absolutely key in the work that we do, and it can so easily be undermined if we don't have worked out the privacy settings in the tools that we're using. How can we maintain serial conversations with clients at times which suit them and us, but also can be managed in a casework sense? How could understanding the implications for clients in terms of employer selection activity? I mean, this field is so vast, but there is certainly evidence, a lot of evidence, some of it being on TV, about employers making inappropriate use, we would argue inappropriate use, Facebook argue inappropriate use of posts on social media, on Facebook and other social media for selection activity. As I said, this has all got to be part of an ongoing conversation, because there are opportunities to set up communities of knowledge and expertise. And one of the things I've already mentioned is the ICG community of interest in this area. One of the things, part of that I'm very keen to explore, and I started talking to SDS colleagues a couple of weeks ago about, is how to use this technology so that you as individuals can tag and understand who across Scotland, for example, has got knowledge about particular occupational areas, about particular social needs, etc. And there's a long way to go on that front, but the technology is basically there, we just need to capture it. So colleagues, I've gone on a bit longer than I intended to. I've run across a lot of areas. I hope what I've done is raised the kind of broad issues that there are around this area, and that as we move forward, what I'm determined that we do is we actually start sharing the practical issues and solutions to the kind of issues that I've raised. Thank you very much.